And hey guys.
Hello.
Okay, so okay, week 11 of whatever, I don't care. We'll just start as we always start. You guys go over with what you did the last week. In JJ, your case, anything you might have done over the last 2 weeks,
Okay.
and we'll go from there. So who wants to be first?
I'll go first, I guess.
Yeah, JJ, always up to the task.
Since you haven't seen me in a while. Yes. Okay. Let me screen share. Oh, 1 second. Screen share, Illustrator. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, you guys can see. Yeah, I just did a quick kind of poster for
Okay.
the non-existent PUSO rock band.
Okay.
Huh. Just so I can learn more poster making techniques, I guess.
Well, yeah, and some Illustrator practice.
Yeah.
I noticed. Are you messing around with what's the tool? For radial patterns. I forget. But were you messing with radial patterns?
No, actually, that background thing, I guess
Yeah.
you're looking at, that's just this image I got from the internet.
Oh.
Um,
Oh.
uh, yeah. So I just, oh, I've been using, what's it called? The, um, Live Trace, yeah. I guess I just because it was originally a JPEG, and
Oh. Okay.
I live traced it. I mean, it's not that complex at all, but I never used it before, so that's cool, I guess. For some reason, I also had to use it for the PUSO logo,
Yeah, because
which
I gave it as a PNG. I haven't given the source yet because I'm lazy, and I really should give you guys the source files. I'll get on that at some point, I'm sure.
oh, okay. I mean, or like like that's the reason why the sun is cropped out of the logo. Um,
Okay.
I couldn't figure out how to like vectorize it with
Right.
the
Right. Okay.
sun in it. So that's a problem I encountered.
Yeah.
Um,
Live trace is useful now and again. It's something to definitely avoid using on more complex objects. Um, when you use it on, it's relatively simple, so it's not that bad. The logo also is relatively simple, so it's not going to be that hard either. But for either the low resolution objects or really complex objects, it might not be the easiest choice or the best choice. So it works in certain scenarios. In this case, it was fine. So
okay.
skip at it. All right. You were on vacation for a week, so I didn't expect you to have like that much. So
Okay.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you've done anything else. Just like
No.
all
This
right.
was it.
All right, and then Mona and Vivian, I told you guys to pick something and have the other one do it. Something that you'd do, but then like to swap it around so you get some other practice outside of what you'd want to normally do. So, what did you two
Oh,
do?
I think we kind of totally forgot to tell each other what to do.
Nice.
But
Good job.
but I did do stuff that I don't usually do, I guess.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I was just like,
Oh, what is this?
I mean like
Trying to.
I an iPhone page app looking thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here's something to think about. If you are, since you decided to go ahead and do this, this is something that I'm familiar with that I can talk about. Designing on a phone, especially a higher density phone, in terms of the display resolution, very different from designing for a display or for paper. Like, take a look at some of the text on the screen. I can already tell, like with where it says all events, meetings, and photos, and where it has the subtitle for that image, where it's like coffee, 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 yum, 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 less than 3, less than 3, less than 3, don't know, blah, blah, blah. That is way too tiny for a display.
Oh, okay.
Because, like, if you zoom it out, like, say, to 25% or something, or maybe somewhere around, like, 35, I guess. Oh yeah, that's fine, but like at because you have to consider you're holding a device only this big in your hands. The display, you have to scale. If you're going to be doing like say an app layout or something, it has to scale to this size. Text can't be that tiny. It's going to be really hard to read, and especially if it's in bright light, it makes it even harder to read. When you are designing anything for a mobile space, you have to take into account that. It's an entirely different thing than designing from desktop. Or for paper or anything else like that. Designing a phone, you're generally holding it like about a ruler or so length away. Tiny elements will be hard to see. You'd have to like get really close to your screen, and no one really wants to have to do that. Everything has to be sized up to a reasonable size, and if you're gonna be having touch elements, those have to be like spaced well enough that you don't accidentally touch one. The targets can't be very tiny; they have to be big. You need to have the consistent layout and all that sort of stuff. Mobile designing is a very complex thing, and I know I've done it. I've tried making mobile apps and web pages. It's not easy. So it's not something that is really like you can just. It's not something you can just go into and expect to get it well like first couple of times. I mean, this is just like a mock-up anyway, but still, a lot of things to consider when you're trying to design something for mobile. Consider that most mobile operating systems don't have a lot of ways to recreate what some of the things you can do in Photoshop. Like, you won't get blending options and all of that sort of stuff within Android or iOS for the most part. Like, you won't be able to change layer blending modes. You won't be able to do things like that. So you won't have like soft light or hard light or overlay, things like that. If you want images of any sort, those have to be exported manually, and everything else has to be either static, well-defined round circles with very basic shading, or in the case of iOS, with the gradation and the blur. You have to take into account the limitations of each operating system as well when you're designing on mobile. So it just becomes a very, very difficult sort of thing. And then on top of that, you have to consider all of the style guidelines and design paradigms that have been established for every operating system, like navigation within Android versus navigation within iOS. Both of them are very consistent within each operating system, but they're also very different from each other. So then you have to consider that, and like things like iconography, so that you have a very consistent styling within an operating system, and all sorts of things. There's a lot to take into account when you're doing mobile design. So I'm glad that you're trying it. It's just that it's something that's very difficult.
Yeah.
So
I was just kind of like playing around with like being a design for it, so I was thinking about how much like you could see it.
yeah. If anything, anything to like test it, what you could do is just like save it as an image, load it up on your phone, and like just have it blow up to the side of the display and see what it looks like. Because if you're design, I think that'd be the easiest way to just check how your layout would look / feel. Like, what are you able to reach with one thumb? What is underneath? Like, what you have to scroll for? What do you have to actually press in something else for? It's something that you get as you like practice those things. But it's more developing. It's doing that. It's a lot. There's a lot more developmental stuff that goes into it. But since you're just mocking up UI, it's not as big of a deal. But it's something to consider. There's a lot to consider, really.
Yeah.
And then just like on one point that is like probably the most key, and it's starting to bleed into mobile web and modern web page design and all that. the recent Android design guidelines for Android L demonstrated this. There is more value now, rather than in information density, fitting as much information as you can on the screen. There's more value in information hierarchy, so that there's a proper flow to the information, and that you can understand going from one thing to the next. Things don't have to. You don't have to try to fit as many things on the screen as possible. Just everything is sized appropriately, spaced appropriately, and there's just a natural flow from info to info. It's a lot, really. So, it's just something to really sort of consider. If you do want to keep playing around in that space, there's a lot. I would recommend, if you do want to start like messing with that sort of stuff. Both major operating systems have design guidelines that you should look over. I've linked Androids before. I probably will link to iOS's in the future. So, and those will have like just basic rules, guidelines, not like hard set rules, but guidelines that make your app consistent in experience with whatever else is on that ecosystem. Okay, so that's good that you did that, though.
Yeah, that's all I did.
Yeah, it's not something that's really easy to get into. Mobile design, it's a tricky space, but good shot trying at it. All right. Then Vivian, what you got for us?
Well, I went back to a matte painting.
Okay.
So, yeah. It's the Grim Reaper's side job. He's mowing the grass. Yeah, so, I started with this, field, I guess.
Okay.
And I masked the top of it so it only showed the land. And in the background I had these clouds.
This one isn't that bad. I do notice it's kind of like that. One of the biggest things you did is that everything is sort of monochromatic. Everything's just like shades of one color.
Yeah.
That does make it easier. Like, it's a stylistic thing, and that's understandable. So it makes it easier for things to blend, because you don't have to consider color temperature as much, and things like that, something like that. Couple things to note though. You do have some of like these hay bales sort of that like go off into the background. Some of them feel like they get cut off early because of how you masked it. I'm not sure. I can't really tell exactly just because of compression within the chat, but that's whatever. But I'm not sure how clean those lines are. If I could get the source, it'd be easier to tell. Lighting is better in this. It's decently consistent in that things are being lit from the top right, and that everything's falling to the bottom left. Sure, some of it's a bit steeper, like the Grim Reaper's lighting is the Reaper lighting on his garb is a bit lower than the rest of the lighting on everything else, but that's a minor thing. This is good, but don't get stuck in doing monochromatic. It makes it very easy because then you don't have to consider color temperature and all that other sort of jazz. You just need to consider things like brightness and whatnot. You can stretch out monochromaticism a little bit, like how we were talking about relative color a while back. Like that sort of hay bale sort of thing, you would expect it to be a very yellowish sort of color, mixed in with how blue the overall temperature of the image is. You could stretch that to be a little bit greener than the rest of the image, and it would be understood as yellow being the warmest thing in the scene. So play around with stretching the color a bit, because like you have this is good. So now you have this as a base point. You could start to expand off of it, or like just going on to other sort of matte paintings, but then like just expanding from the one single color and expanding to colors that are more analogous. Sometimes doing things where you try to keep color stylistic is easier than like trying to keep everything very realistic, because then you have a bit more artistic freedom to do with it as you please. So I would say do more of this like this. Just play around with the color some more. Try to stretch it out and see what fits, and start to develop an idea of palette a bit more. That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on to what I wanted to cover this week. I kind of just thought of it 10 minutes ago, or 20 minutes ago rather. I want to talk about some single color techniques, since if you end up doing edit or whatever, this is something you probably have to do. It's like, hey, we need a shirt, so make us the shirt design, but you can only use one color. And that's one of the biggest pains in the ass. Is like, I want to use a lot of color, or I just want to use at least 2 or 3 colors so I can express what's in my head with a bit more ease. But what is art if there is no constraints? So I will show if I can. Okay, here we go. So single color techniques. I want to cover this. So I'm just gonna. I have a default Photoshop size here. Actually, I'm just gonna scale it up by 2. So 200% it. I don't care. It's all white. Wait, canvas size. That's what I want. 100, 200. Okay. No. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go over a couple of things. They're pretty basic, but they're very helpful. Let's say I'm just gonna start off with something basic. So let's say, for example, I wanted to have some form of shading on my shirt design, right? One of the ways to do that is to either, let's say, let's see if I can just make this one really quickly. Say I wanted to make, ooh, no, not that brush, hardness. So let's say I wanted to make, oh, that's big. But let's say I wanted to make a circle on my design, right? But I wanted it to be like sort of a 3D sort of shape. There's 2 basic ways about going about this. Let's say I had a white shirt, or actually no, let's say I had a black shirt and I wanted to make a white circle. Actually no, let's just go back to this. It's probably easier to demonstrate. So the 2 ways of going about it, we got this. So let me actually make this on a different layer. Oh. Alright, so I can work with it independently. So, circle. I want to make it into like a sphere on my shirt design. Easiest way to show a sphere is through shading. So like if I were to like say just lower this hardness, do that, lower the size, lower the opacity of this next layer, clip it down. Let's say I want to do something like, let me lower the hardness all the way down. And lower this opacity a bit more. Like, that's sort of gives you the idea of a sphere, right? Because like now there's a lighting point there, it gets darker towards the edges. This is the most basic way I could make a sphere if I wanted to put it on, say, a shirt. But I'm only allowed 1 ink color, so let's say all I have access to is black. How do I do this with only black ink on a white shirt? This can expand onto other sorts of ideas, but this is one of the basic applications of it. So right now, I have this sort of a design. I should probably change my brush up so there's less noise within my brush, so that it makes things a bit easier to work with. Let me go to my brush dynamics. And noise. No, thank you. So a bit more basic of a sphere, less noise. See a smoother sphere now. What I can do is I can do a process referred to as half-toning. You might have seen it before in, say, like comic books. I'll show you basically an example of a halftone really quickly before we delve into it over there. So let's say I have this black hardness. Say I have on this layer a black circle. I'm sure you've probably been familiar. Gotten a bit familiar with a halftone within say comics, because they don't print black ink other than black, and if they want to print other colors, they have to use a mixture of cyan, yellow, and magenta. But in order to save ink, this is particularly more so in older comics, because modern printing techniques eliminate the need for for classic half-toning techniques. But like you'll see, we'll have all these channels. Each of these represents one of the 4 printing channels that we use. We have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So like what used to be done is that a piece of paper would be sent through a printer in multiple passes, I think, and at different angles relative to the printer. So then the printer would have like, yeah, you'll see it, or not. Maybe if I pick an actual color, or a couple of colors, so that we have examples. That color, that color, this color, and just for balance, a gray. So now if I do the same sort of a thing, if I go into, where is it? Pixelate color halftone. So yeah, you'll see some things like this. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this sort of effect before. So like if you zoom all the way out, or you go really far away, you get a very, if I'm just gonna go ahead and undo what I did, so like this is what I had before. If I go ahead and redo what I had done, wait, step forward, and then halftone again. It's not the exact same, but if we zoom all the way out, it looks very similar in terms of color relatively to what we had before. We can expand on that using only black and white. So let's say I have this now. I'm going to go ahead and delete this really quickly. I'm going to take a gray instead of a black, exactly. So then I'm going to go ahead and turn down the hardness and make another sort of a sphere-like thing. Not too far, too big. Okay, that's good enough. So now if I go ahead and I color, if I take this image and I make it actually go to, say, grayscale, I'll flatten. So now it's all black and white. It's fine because it was black and white to begin with. If I do something like, say, color halftone, I end up with something like this. What I can actually do is I can say, let me think exactly. It's been a while since I've done this. It's been a while since I've actually needed to do this, since I haven't made a shirt in a while. So I'm going to, let me just check really quickly. All, copy, new, paste. It's been a while. I color halftone that. So now if I, so I color halftone the entire thing. What you can see is that I now have a very, it's like if we zoom out, you can sort of see the sphere, right? But if you get in closer, all you do actually see is that they're just black dots at varying sizes and spacings to give you the illusion of that sort of darkness, or like sort of shading. What I would actually end up doing is, if I take this, invert it, or actually no, take this layer, fill it with white, or not white, merge these layers, invert it, color halftone it, And then I'd end up with something like that. Now I have like a hard-edged sphere with the sort of fake shading that I wanted, but only use. It's not exactly the shading I wanted, of course not. That's a limitation of this technique. But I now have, using only 2 colors, a sense of depth and shading, only using 1 color. Let me look for an example that I've done before. Maybe more than a couple of examples, actually. See what I have. I know I've done more than a couple. If I look at the, not this shirt, where would it be? This shirt. If we look at this shirt, I only had 1 color to use, but I wanted to use a lighter version of the black that I had. So if we just go ahead and insert a white layer here really quickly, you'll notice, like, if you could go all the way out, it looks like I have 2 different layers of, well, 2 different levels of black. I zoom all the way in, then I have this black, and then this black with holes in the middle of it where white would go, in which case, if it's being printed on a white t-shirt, instead of it actually being a place where white would go, that's a place where a lack of white would go, or just where black ink would miss, I guess you could say. And then another thing I did was down here, just to mix it up a bit, I used white space. So like I had this black ink surrounding what I wanted to say in letters, but I didn't actually have any ink used there or color used there. So another place I used it was in, let me think. I used it in my D3 design from last year. If I go here, I had made 2 versions of this shirt to be printed on a black and a white shirt. They ended up only printing the white shirt. I don't care, whatever. But if you look at both of them, you'll notice that I gave the illusion that the ribbon, which is sort of like going around in around District 3, I give it a sense of depth without using a 3rd color, because I was only restricted to using 2 colors. In the case of the black shirt, I used white and yellow. In the case of the white shirt, I used white, black, and yellow, same yellow. So if we look closely at what I did, in the ribbon for the black version, I had the brightest, where I wanted it to be represent the foreground, is solid yellow, and any place that was going to be thrown into the background was half-toned. This is a lower resolution version of what I had done. So what you'll notice is it's not exactly like the best halftone you can tell, but that's what I did. I also did it in these little corners, so like you can tell, like the ribbon sort of like I sort of like bent the ribbon back and like had it go forward again. If you take a look at the white version of the shirt, I had to keep the same idea, the brighter color in the front and darker color in the back to give the ribbon a sense of depth. So what I did was, instead of half-toning the back, because the background color, in this case the t-shirt color, wasn't going to be the same, I half-toned the front, and I let the white of the background, or the shirt, lighten the same color. This plays into the idea that we were talking weeks ago about relative color, that by interspersing all of this white within the yellow of the top ribbon, I've made the yellow lighter, even though it's the exact same color, at least the way we are perceiving it. In the black shirt, by filling in the yellow with a bunch of black, I make the yellow seem much darker, although it is the exact same ink color. So that's another example of like how you can use half-toning. I used a very simple case of it. I do think I have one more case of where I have used it. So I did it on the District 3 shirt. I did it on the senior shirt from, not this one, the one before. And when was the last time I used it? I definitely know I used it at least one other time. But, oh, actually, yeah, my D3 design for this year, but that didn't get made. It wasn't chosen, so it didn't happen. My design was basically this one. So I was limited to 2 colors again, but what I didn't want to do compared to the year before was I didn't want to do it use white and black, because that's always a thing. I wanted to be different. I wanted to have more color involved. Most of I feel like red I feel like yellow is consistently used in District 2, so I was just going to stick to that. But I wanted to actually have a yellow shirt. The two ink colors I wanted to use was yellow, well, a darker yellow, more of an orangey, goldish sort of thing, and then white for outlining. So you can see right here, the white outlines the sun, outlines the text, so that I can define a shape that is yellow without having to use yellow ink, because I was going to have a yellow shirt. And then I half-toned at varying degrees of half-toning what I wanted to be the background, foreground sort of layering. So like if we zoom all the way out, you'll see you can see like 3 different shades of a color, varying like lightnesses of it. It's all really the same one color. So like if we look here, like the foreground, which is like the Statue of Liberty, some of these buildings in the bottom right here, and then this text, it's all this one orangey, reddish, bronzy sort of color. And then as we go further in, I use the lightness of the yellow at varying degrees of intensity, I guess you could say, to blend the background going further away, but still only maintaining that one color. I'd actually gotten a very similar idea off of, you guys might have seen it, my Pikachu shirt that I wear sometimes. It uses a very similar sort of technique, albeit with more degrees of half-toning, and I think at least one extra color. But then this goes into like background gets lighter and fades into the background as subjects get further and further away from as they go further and further into the background, they get lighter and start to blend in with like the sky. In this case, sky ended up being yellow because that's the color I had, and it starts blending more and more in as we go further and further back. You can still like make out like this is a city outline. Some of these are from New York, some of these are from New Jersey. I just sort of mishmashed it together. I really wanted this to win, but whatever. That's beside the point. But these are very basic examples. I didn't do anything like gradation. Like one way you could use this half-toning is with, say, if you wanted to do like any sort of shading or gradients within a design, like you could have this. You could have you could do something like this in your say shirt design. I have reverse on, that's why I'm confused. So you could do something like this, and then what you could just do is, or like this, and then what you could just do is use color half-toning, and now you have, using only black, a smooth transition from black to white. This is something I don't think a lot of people sometimes use, but it's something to consider and keep in mind because it ends up being very useful. This is actually very I wanted to talk about this just because I know if you do guys get into sort of editing for any sort of club, making shirts is one of those jobs. It's one of those weird jobs when making a shirt, especially if you have no idea what to do. And then when you do get an idea, it's very hard to try to fit within the constraints that someone else has given you. This is one of those little workarounds to give yourself a bit more play with the limitations that you're given. Given only 1 or 2 ink colors, you can at least achieve a sense of depth or other colors. So like mix it up a bit. But it's a very basic technique. I don't want to spend any more talking about it than I already have. I do want you guys to try it though, and like while I'm still here, since like it's a bit weird to do at first, so I want you guys to like play with it while I'm here, and like so you can ask me about it. So this is what I've done with it, and you guys will probably come up with other ideas outside of what I've done. I just want you guys to get the idea for half-toning. So I've gone and shown you what I've done with it, how you can use it, and basically how it's done. I do want you guys could open up, like I guess Photoshop would be the easiest thing to start in, and then we can talk about, and then you guys could like ask me if you have any issues or are confused about half-toning, any sort of a thing, confused about the process. So let's just open up Photoshop, and I guess we'll go from there. We'll see if you guys pick up on halftoning really quickly or not. That means go. Yeah, screen sharing would, you don't necessarily need to, but it would help me if you guys have any questions on the process. It's something that I only really started doing about like 2-3 years ago, so I'm only somewhat familiar with ins and outs of it. Doing it in Illustrator is actually very confusing sometimes, so if you guys want to ask about doing it in Illustrator, that's another level of complexity, I guess, to the process. For now, I do it in Photoshop after I've made an image, and then I change everything to one color and then do halftones so that I can get it all done, sort of, really. So, I mean, I guess I will show one other thing about halftones is how I did, this might help, I'm not sure if you guys will use it, but how I did sort of the, let me just go ahead and make a couple of shapes here. A couple of basic shapes, so you guys get an idea. So, I'm just gonna make them all black, so that you guys get an idea. So, I'll make 3 layers. This will be my foreground layer. I could move it. Yeah, foreground layer, middle ground layer, and then further middle ground layer, and then the background is going to be white. Layering for halftoning is actually a very interesting process. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to demonstrate this technique, I guess, because it's a fun one, for me at least. So I only want to use black. What I want to do is, well, let's say not black. Let's say I wanted to use, let's say my background was actually red, just so I can illustrate you can do it in more than just black and white. I do want to do this very quickly. So let's say I'm going to change my mode to not grayscale anymore. I'm going to go to RGB color space. Don't flatten. So I'm going to fill this image with not that red. That red's too strong. So let's do a nicer, easier red on the eyes. Maybe that one. Okay, so I do want to demonstrate this. So we have this red. Let's say I want to make a white into a white sort of shape that fades in layers to the red. So basic first shape that's in the foreground, I can make that a white easily. It's already there. I'm just gonna go do color overlay and boop-a-doop. It's white. So now what I want to do is blend it in sort of. So I'm gonna demonstrate. I'll show you what I mean by blend it in. So if I just take these fills, turn them down.
Marco?
Yeah?
I don't think.
Oh, I'm not showing anything. I'm a dickhead.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Okay, so never mind. All right, so now I'm showing it. Okay, so I have these shapes. Let me turn their fills back on. So I have these 3 layers that I just made with the brush tool. So I have like this thing, I have this thing, and I have this thing. I've already colored this, but like I wanted to illustrate this layering sort of idea that I did in my shirts, and that you can do it with more than just like black to white, because most of my examples are basic black to white sort of stuff, except for like the D3 thing. So like now I have this one shape. I want to have this go into red, like a soft fade. I want to like say maybe print it on a shirt, but I was only allowed to use white ink or one ink color. So then I would start with this basic thing. Like I just draw out the shapes. So like if I turn the effect off, I started with a black circle there, a black circle there, a black circle there, of varying degrees. It all kind of meshes into one shape right now, but let me just go ahead and turn their fills off so that I can do this now. So now that color overlay is set to white. This color overlay I will also set to white. And this color overlay I will also set to white, so that you guys get the idea. Now I will take this opacity, turn it down to 33%, take this opacity and turn it down to 66%. Now I have like this sort of stepping thing. What I actually do want to do though is mask them off out of each other. So let's say take this, go to this big layer. I want to mask it off. So so that's a smooth transition from the red to from the white to the red. But I can't use transparent ink, and I can't get inks of these colors. So the next best way to do that is with half toning. So what I can do, I know the steps that I want to do. I want 2 steps in between my destination. So if I have this one endpoint, this other endpoint, I have to fit 2 endpoints in the middle, well, 2 steps in the middle. So if I want to place those 4 points along the line individually, it'd be at 0%, it'd be like a 0, 33, 66, and then 100. So I'd have the 4 points or 4 steps. It's some basic math. So I'm just going to turn these effects off and turn their fills back on. So now I'm going to take, say, I'll go ahead and do what I was saying. I'm going to take a 33% or 66% white, in which case, or 33%, yeah, 66%. So basic. Just going to layer it down. So I'm going to fill that color with that. I'm going to go in here and then get the next step down towards black. Black being the darkest. So now there's the black there. So now what I can do is, now that I have the colors established, I can go halftone them. So now if I take this, I go into filter, color halftone. The issue with color halftone, if you leave it at its default settings, is that all these channels are of different degrees. Easiest way to fix it, other than going into grayscale, is to make them all the same degree, so all the colors overlay, and then you'll get something like that. So now I have something like that. I do think that it's a bit different than what I want. So what I can do, so I don't think the circles are big enough as what I want. So I can go into color halftone again, change the radius to, like, say 12, I guess. I have these bigger circles. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to either use the black as the actual white, or I'm going to take the white and then remove the black, but I'll show you what I mean in a bit. I'm going to do the same to the other color so that it gets a similar sort of idea. The way it's transitioning right now, I would end up removing the black, but I don't want that. So what I can actually do is take their colors. I'm going to switch them around. Let me take the eyedropper, take that color, eyedropper, take that color. Paint bucket tool, fill in over here. Paint bucket tool, fill in over here. So now what I can do, filter, color halftone. That's a bit big in terms of the circle, so fix that again, just bring it back down to 10. It's a bit big still, so color halftone it again. Whoops, no. Filter, pixelate, color halftone, let's make it 8 again. That's fine. And then this other layer as well, same color halftone. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to each individual layer. I'm going to go select color range. I'm going to select not the black, that, like, as it's already selected. I'm actually going to select the white, and then I'm going to delete that white. Then I'm going to do the same with this layer. I'm going to color range, select the same color range. It's already selected for me, so I can just do that selection and delete them. I can do a color overlay of white on each. I just change the color to white. It's already white. This one, oh, it just changed their opacities, right, of course. So now I have, only using white, I have a smoother transition from white into red. It's not a perfect transition because I was just doing it in terms of steps and layers, but you get the idea that you can sort of make this sort of blending happen. So I've already spent too much time talking about it. I'm just going to let you guys get to it. If you guys have any questions, I am here to answer them. And maybe mess around with the whatever it is that you're doing. So that's enough talking for me. Oh gosh. All right. So I just did another quick example of like layering it. Another just like a different color. This is going from like pink to a red. And it's really cheese, but it gets the point across of like transition from the pink into the red using only the one color. You like say maybe like you see someone with this on a shirt from like a really far away distance, it'll look like a smooth enough transition. It's all just one color though, so it has its uses.
Marco,
Yeah.
I have a question.
All right.
So I'm trying to kind of do the same thing you did like before, with the gradient, kind of. But I'm applying the halftone to just this stripe over here.
Okay.
But when I do that, I get this.
Okay. How did you make that shape, that stripe?
I let's see. Well, I drew a rectangle shape.
Okay. I guess that would be the
And
first place you just if you
yeah.
because there's basically two ways of doing the halftone method. I should probably explain them. This is probably the easier way to go about it. Okay, so I'm gonna sort of do what you're doing as an example. I'm gonna use default Photoshop size. I'm just gonna double everything. So we have an image. I'm gonna start with a color. Say this blue or something. Whoa, not that. This blue or something. And then I want to transition it into, over the course of four steps total, like yours, into, let's say, this purple. I'm going to go ahead and make that purple. I'm just going to make this easy for myself. I'm going to give myself these guides. So I know I want 4 steps, so there's going to be like 3 walls you could sort of imagine. So I'm going to have one at 25%, one at 50%, another at 75%. So I want the purple. So I'm going to make a new layer for myself. I'm just going to make all the layers right now. I'm going to make this layer the purple layer. I'll put the blue. I'll unlock this, make it a actual layer. Move it to the top. Then I'm going to go ahead and just mark off that section. This section and this section only. So I have this blue. I want to transition it in each little bit over towards that purple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Using the halftoning, because I only say I want to put a blue image on a purple shirt. I don't know why I would, but maybe I do. So, way to view it, I'm going to make a new layer so that you can sort of view it. Viewing it in steps, like the first step, the color you're gonna blend from, that's gonna be black. The color you're gonna end up at, that's gonna be white. So that's white. So now you need the in-betweens. So in between, that's about 33% bright, and then It's just 66, 67% bright. So I made all of these right now. Let me go ahead and fill that in right there. So I have all of these. What I could do immediately right now is I just select that and select this layer. I can go ahead and color halftone this one layer. So I have this, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I could actually do right now, and then I could take this color range, select it, click on the white, make sure that all the white in the image is selected, delete it. So now I have that. I'll take this layer again, bring it up to the top. Let's get my gradient eyedropper, fill this entire layer with the blue, clip it down to the layer beforehand, and I have this transition sort of a thing. That's one way of going about it, putting all of your transitionary phases on one layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other way of doing it is doing it once per layer. If you want hard edges, this is like using a very smooth transition by having all of them on one layer. Sometimes I want this, sometimes I don't. Like if I want to have a well-defined circle, I would not use this method because it makes the edges of the circle made of circles. Mm-hmm. So the other method, a way of doing it, would be the way you might be going about it. So it's the same basic idea. We have all these separate colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now what we're going to do is I'm going to make each of these their own layer, really. So if I take a selection and let me just, what would be it? I would cut it out in this layer, then paste it in here, move it over. So now that's in that position. In this layer, I would go ahead, take that, another layer, paste it in. Well, like you can just position your blocks. I'm just making them right now in an awkward way, but really all I only need are these two middle ones because the blue and the purple I already have defined. I don't need a layer for the blue and the purple one for the other ones. So I can just get rid of those because those are going to be fine where they are. Don't need this black one either. Oh, I mean this. Yeah, I just deleted the other layer. Never mind. Give me a second. Right, so I don't need that black layer. Now this blue layer goes on top. So now what you can do is you can do the same sort of thing. Each of these are their own individual layer. The blue is its own layer, the purple is its own layer, and the middle steps are also their own layer of varying degrees from black to white. In this case, I have these two gray values because I just need those two steps. For each of them, I'm going to do a color halftone. Or rather, just hold on. Let me duplicate these layers really quickly. So now, normally what I end up doing first is I just take all of these. I end up filling them with whoops. I end up filling them with the base color and then turning those off first, and also having those clipped down. So now I have these two layers of what the blue will be. So now, what I'll do from there, let's say I want to make this the first step over towards purple. I'll take that. I'll make sure on this bottom layer to mask off only this rectangle, so it's reveal selection. Everything else is hidden. Mm-hmm. I will go ahead and do the color halftone on that area. So now you can see it's all black and white. I'll select again color range, make sure only the whites get selected, delete those, and then once that's done, I have the blue. I'll do the same thing for the second step. Get the selection, make sure that that's the only thing that's there, so I will reveal selection. I will go ahead and do the color halftone. Select the whites and get rid of them. That's not racist in any way. And then blend, and then just have the color overlay on top of it. So like what you'll notice with this method relative to the other method is that we can get very hard edges. So like you know where something starts and where something stops. Mm-hmm. Sometimes this works and is nice. Sometimes it doesn't. Depends on the kind of shapes you're trying to use. So this is sort of how you'd go about it. There's two different ways depending on how well defined your shapes you want to be. Generally, most of the time I use a method like this. I will like draw out the shapes where I want them and have them filled in with the source color. Then I go ahead and duplicate them. and then after I duplicate them, the duplicate layers, I make the steps from black to white, and then I do the color halftoning on those, and then I map the color down onto them with clipping, or I could do color overlay if I wanted to. I just do a separate layer and a clipping mask because it's easier for me to change the color with once I select the color here, and then I can just like Alt Delete on the layer. But that's generally how I do it. Like if I switch to a green, Alt Delete, and then I can do that with every of these layers. Whoops. This layer should also have a mask if you want to do this that way though, so that you can just only reveal the selection. Alt Delete fill. Wow. And then that, and then I have another gradient. I just switched all the colors around. It's not that hard really. It's just, I guess it's one of those things you sort of learn, and you sort of like start to get the idea of like how what you're actually doing within the method, I guess you could say.
Okay, cool. I will give it a try.
All right. If anyone does want to try it in Illustrator, I can show that. It's just a decently more complex method. So, if like anyone wants me to. All right, let's take a look at what everyone else has got. All right, Mona, make sure that I see you're trying to map that color down onto the lower layer.
Yeah.
On yours.
I'm like having to.
Yeah. So on the half-toned layer with the black and white circles, once you have that layer selected, go to select up at the top and then color range. Make sure you click on a white space somewhere in the image, on like the actual image. Yeah, just click on white, and then to make it easier, go where it says to selection preview, and have that set to quick mask. Down.
Oh.
What that does is that everything that's not selected, it'll put in red. All right, so that's fine. Now hit OK. Now press delete. And now try to turn that layer on from before.
Yay!
But what you want to do is you actually, with color halftoning, you're using relative perception of color to make people infer colors. So you don't want to change what the color is at every step. You want to keep it the same as the source, as like the first color. Like I have in mind a very strong sort of light green right now. And all of those steps, even though I'm going lighter and lighter technically, I'm keeping it the same light green color, because the purple behind it, or whatever background color you might be using, ends up blending it in people's eyes and in their mind. You don't have to do any of the actual color blending yourself. You still have to let people's perception do it for you. So yeah, like that. So like now you have like you have solid pentagon and a less solid pentagon, but because of the way the color is being filled in and blended in someone's mind between the blue and the white, it seems like a lighter blue, especially at a distance. If you do want smaller dots, what you can do is you can go into filter and color halftone. When you can just change the maximum radius to a smaller number if you wanted smaller circles. You'd have to do the whole thing over again because you're not going to color halftone something that's already been color halftoned.
Oh.
But you get the idea.
Okay.
It's just if you wanted to know. You sort of got it there, Vivian? Or
I was going to color range, but
like getting rid of the white, I guess.
yeah.
Okay, so you have each of those like little ovals you have with the pattern, with on their own layer, right?
Yeah.
So like on one of those layers, in that menu, you'll click on select, when you're on that, when you have that layer selected, you're gonna click the select menu up top, and then you're gonna click color range.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna click on the actual image, not in the little pop-up window. One of the colors that you want to get removed. In this case, it's the white, so you just click on actual white. It's a bit hard since you have small dots, but yeah, you can click on white, and then hit OK, and then you can hit delete, and it should get rid of the white for you. Yeah, and then you can just, if that color gets deleted, you can, since now that shape you had now has transparency to it, you can now fill in what's left with either, say, like another color, or use like either a blending option of color overlay, or do another layer and use a clipping mask to get the color you want on top of it. What I'd suggest first is deselecting. So then you won't have to deal with it, and then once that's done, just go ahead and mess with the colors, and then go to town, really.
Okay.
Now that I think about it, you might have actually noticed a very similar sort of effect like this when sometimes people do knits or they do cross stitching. If they want to do a color from like a smoother transition from, like, say, a dark blue to a white, they'll do a very similar sort of idea. But instead of using like half toning, they'll just space out their stitching more and more until it gets to like the color they want. This is a very similar sort of idea. You'll see this used in a lot of different places. It's just a way of smoothing it all out, using what the mind perceives as color to use actual less information. In our case, we're using less color, but we're using how the mind perceives it to make more color. So then you just do it for every layer and of whatever it is you're doing, and then you end up with fancy gradients of whatever, really. So this isn't very complex. It's just something that I guess needs practice. I'm gonna go over it. I'm gonna do it one last time on my end. So like at the end of this recording, like it's like right at the end of the recording, me doing it from start to scratch, so that you guys can look at that, and then I'll leave it at that for the week. You guys can practice this, or maybe you try to use it, say, a tutorial or something else, and then we'll go on from there and see how it all works out next week. So I'll just close all my things. So I'm gonna try to actually make it sort of very drawn out and deliberate. So I'm gonna go ahead and make, say, US paper. I'm gonna do a few steps. 50%. Whoops. $50%. 25%. 75%. New guide, say 33% horizontal, and then a new guide at, say, 66%, or rather 67%. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have gradients, well, not gradients, bucket. So like this, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's this. FF split. Okay, I'm still here. So from here, I'm gonna fill each layer in one color at a time. Paint bucket. So that. This is a marquee tool. So that this will be 33%. Oh. New. Oh, nope. This will be 67. And then oh, whoops. These should be on each on individual layers. Redo. And I'll probably, for this, just so that you guys have a reference afterwards, I will upload this. I'm going to upload the source PSD that I'm working on right now with some labels later, I guess, to PUSO Art's Facebook page so that you guys have a reference that's labeled and everything. Grouped. No. Group. Let's group these. Group these. Okay, so now this gets half-toned. Okay, so now that I have that there, with all of this, take these four of them down. Oh, well, looks like I did not do the best job of that. Oh well. Oh, well. No ratio, please. Okay, so now I can just blending options. Let's do that. Just use those. Let's pick a color. Okay. This. Okay. All right. So I've made a reference document. I'm just about to label it, and once I finish making this, I guess, reference document, sort of basic color grading steps, I will upload it, and I think we'll be done for the day once I have this uploaded. Just so. And so while I'm finishing this up, feel free to ask any questions about anything you guys might have about the process still, if anything still escapes you a little bit. This is, I'll just use the font everyone should have, Arial. Too big. So I'll give this a stroke of, say, white. 5 pixels. Okay. Duplicate this text layer. Oh, well. Alright, ship. Wow. here. All right. Go over to Facebook. All right, so today was not that long, an hour and a half. It's just some basic stuff. I uploaded the halftone reference to the PUSO art page, so you guys have that if you need a sort of reference. It's just basically a very simplified version of the process where we start with the black and white steps or source, and then each step gets individually halftoned, and then you overlay the colors on top of the halftones. I've started it off on a nice orange to yellow gradient. It's getting late summer, almost fallish feel, so that's color appropriate, I guess. We'll try again with this shuffling of what you guys would want to do, sort of a thing. Now, just three of you, maybe one of you will remember and cause the other ones to do the same thing. I want you guys to all right, like find something that you want to do, or think of something that you want to make, but then have someone else do it, so that you guys work a bit more outside of your comfort zone and start to get more from it. Start to try to figure out things other than what you're familiar with, or see what you already know applies to another area. So JJ, I want you to find something for Mona to do. Mona, I want you to find something for Vivian to do. And Vivian, I want you to find something for JJ to do. And then we'll see how this all goes down next week. All right? Okay, so that's it for this week then. Not the longest we've been going at it, but I'll try to think of more practical things that would be useful to know as, like, say, an editor, since that's what this whole apprenticeship is for being an editor. And then we will move on from there. All right. So I will see you guys next week then. Make sure you practice, and all right. Bye.
Bye. See ya. Thanks, Marco.